that, you know, this relationship, one of these relationships that was had with Ime Udoka and one of these women, it was consensual, meaning that this woman actually played a part in it too. So my thing is, yes, Ime Udoka was wrong. We get that. His punishment, he deserved that, and whatever else follows, I hate it for him, but he put himself in this position. But why are the other people getting left off the hook?
Well,
that's the problem that I have right now. Everybody got to be held accountable.
Exactly. The double standards. Yo, welcome back to another episode of the Ruling Class Podcast. And of course, I'm your host, Didi, back up in this bitch with another video. And y'all, I'm 38 hot today. But I still got my 2 goals. I'm trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by October. And my second goal is to drink some of this water. And I can't do neither until you like, subscribe, share, and comment. But don't worry, I'm going to give you a sec to do that. All right, let's get into the video.
Thing, Zach, that you touched on was just this gross focus on identifying unnecessarily women's names that may or may not be involved. And I think it is it isn't too harsh to say that that was a failure by many people, including folks within our own industry. And Brad Stevens actually addressed that today. I want everyone to take a listen.
We have a lot of talented women in our organization, and I thought yesterday was really hard on them, and I think that, you know, nobody can control Twitter speculation and rampant, but I do think that we as an organization have a responsibility to make sure we're there to support them now, because a lot of people were dragged unfairly into that.
I want to bring in our NBA analyst, Kendrick Perkins, into this conversation because, Perk, you played for the Celtics organization.
Okay, so just real quick, before we even get into the video, and we hear what Perk has to say, let me just give y'all an update for those of you who don't know, or maybe for those of you who don't watch sports. So there's an NBA team called the Boston Celtics, and it was just announced, like I believe a couple of days ago, that the head coach for the Boston Celtics will be suspended for the upcoming season, for the entire season, because it was discovered that apparently he had a consensual romantic relationship with one of the female employees under the Boston Celtics organization. Not quite for sure what her role is in the organization, but nonetheless, she worked up under the umbrella. And it was discovered that they had a consensual relationship. It's been announced that the coach will be suspended for an entire season. And now Perk is about to speak on
it. What were your thoughts on this message here?
Well, one, to me, I didn't like Brad comments on this, and let me explain why. Not the fact that he was taking up and protecting the women in the organization, but, you know, he said about the speculations and the Twitter BS and things to that nature, and how unfair it was to the women in the organization that is not involved with this particular situation, and I get that, right? But why is it speculations? It's speculations because of the reports that were put out by the actual Boston Celtics. So they didn't do a great job from the jump of actually protecting the women in their organization, because knowing that they were going to sit up here and give out this information and go out here and suspend Ime Udoka and talk about, just give a little details, it's going to have people speculating. And in my eyes, I feel like the Boston Celtics dropped the ball not only in protecting their entire franchise, but in protecting the women as well. They should have made sure that they crossed their T's and dotted their I's before they put this information out. And I get it. Now we're to this point, and now he had to go on here and he had to say this and he had to say that to protect those innocent women. But at the end of the day, man, it just ain't right how they went about it. The word accountability, okay? Accountability doesn't just go to Ime Udoka, okay? Accountability goes to the other people that played a part in that as well. Let me tell you another thing I didn't like about my good friend Wick Grossbeck and Brad Stevens in this press conference when they asked, is anybody else going to be punished? And they said no. And my whole thing is this, right? These are some of the facts that have been out. These are some facts that I know that, you know, this relationship, one of these relationships that was had with Ime Udoka and one of these women, it was consensual, meaning that this woman actually played a part in it too. So my thing is, yes, Ime Udoka was wrong. We get that. His punishment, he deserved that, and whatever else follows, I hate it for him, but he put himself in this position. But why are the other people getting left off the hook?
Well,
that's the problem that I have right now. Everybody got to be held accountable.
I think that we need to circle back to what Shanae said, is that there was a investigation that was conducted by an independent law firm here, and I think that transparency is what will rule the day here. And so without having all of the information, it is unfair and irresponsible of us to go and to speculate on that, because what we have to...
Well, I'm not speculating.
Sure.
I have the information. I'm not speculating.
But what we have to go with here is the fact that an independent law firm came in, did this investigation, and the facts that they were presented, they came to the conclusion that Ime Udoka violated a policy that warranted a 1-year suspension. And I share your frustration with the lack of transparency, while understanding that there is some things that they need to, from a legal perspective, keep private. But knowing all of that, understanding all of that, we have to come to the conclusion that whatever rule, the conduct that was broken on one side, it is not the same on the other side. I thank you for your perspective.
I don't even know where to begin with this. I don't even know where to begin. You're not able to see it there, but she actually cut Perk off. Like, she is the actual ESPN analyst, the commentator, whatever the proper term is for ESPN. So she controls the narrative there. And clearly she was not happy with what Perk said. She was not happy with what Perk said. So let me just make sure I understand this and I get this right. The head coach for the Boston Celtics was involved in a consensual relationship with a female employee of the Boston Celtics. The disciplinary actions that were decided upon was to suspend this coach for an entire season. And for those of you who don't follow the NBA, that's 82 games. That's 82 games. Now, I'm going to put that into perspective in two ways. The first way is you have a lot of NBA players, you have a lot of former NBA staff who have apparently reached out to some of these analysts and said that they don't understand why the disciplinary actions were so harsh. You know why they said that? They said because relationships like that is a very common thing. In other words, people work together, fool around, mess around, have romantic relationships, sexual relationships quite often. Not just in the NBA or in the professions or the professionals, but also in corporate America and everyday jobs like you and I have. It's a very common thing, and we all know it's a very common thing. Now, let's be clear about this. Don't get me wrong. The coach was guilty. The coach is in the wrong. I think the coach deserves any disciplinary actions that the organization decides to hand down upon him. I 100% support that. He's in the wrong. He should be disciplined for it. There's no question about that. The second way I'm gonna put this into perspective is a lot of y'all who don't follow the NBA might not know what this is, but a lot of you who do and who do follow basketball will know what I'm talking about. A few years ago, there was this thing called the Malice in the Palace. And for those of you who don't know, the Malice in the Palace was this horrific day. Believe it or not, this is real. It was a day where NBA players, professional athletes, left the basketball court, stormed into the stands to fight fans, punching and swinging and grabbing and pushing, and it was horrific. You can literally YouTube this. Anyways, the number one player who was held responsible, the player who was held to be number one responsible for this horrific day in NBA history, which is, I think, still like the craziest, most horrific day in NBA history as it pertains to fans and players, was a guy named Ron Artest. He ended up changing his name to Meta World Peace, and I think he's changed his name again. Anyways, the league decided to hand him down some disciplinary actions. You want to know what those actions were? To be suspended for 1 year. These same disciplinary actions that this coach got for being in a consensual relationship with another employee. Okay, let's say that I can get past that part. I can accept the part that he was disciplined, which I've accepted that he was disciplined, but a lot of players, a lot of people who's inside the NBA and outside the NBA are confused that the disciplinary actions are so harsh. They feel like it's not even worth a 10-game suspension. So as a reminder, let me say this again. It's an 82-game season. For those of you who don't know, 82 games. That's not including the playoffs. That's not including the finals, which, by the way, this coach that just got suspended just took the Boston Celtics to the finals this past season, which is crazy accomplishment. No, it does not mean that because he did that justifies what he did. I'm just saying he should be punished. But the point that I'm making is, why isn't the woman who was also involved punished? That's where I'm confused. Why isn't she punished? And clearly Malika Andrews didn't like that Kendrick Perkins was asking that. Now, obviously, I can admit that there's a lot of things, because if a coach was suspended for a year for having a consensual relationship with another employee for an entire season, I will admit that sounds suspicious, and it sounds like something else is going on, and there's some other stuff that they're not telling us. But here's my problem with that. Kendrick Perkins, a former Boston Celtics player, I might add, says that he's not speculating. He just said that. He's not speculating. He has inside knowledge on the situation, and even he is still confused as to why this woman is not receiving any disciplinary action. Okay, maybe she shouldn't be held to the same standard as the coach. Okay, I can agree with that. He gets suspended for a year, but she needs to have some sort of disciplinary action handed down upon her. I don't know why Malika Andrews mentioned the fact that there was a law firm that got involved, and transparency is the number one thing here. You're saying a whole bunch of nothing. Respectfully, I don't know what that means, Malika. Transparency is what are you saying there? There were two consenting adults who worked together under the umbrella of the Boston Celtics organization, who decided to partake in this affair, and only one of them gets disciplined. That sounds weird. We're talking about this equality thing. We're talking about this treating everybody fairly thing, but I'm not seeing it happening here. Now, again, all the details are not out. We may never get all the details. And Malika was kind of hinting at that. And you can see she got upset and she cut Kendrick off, and she was saying, well, we have to go with what they told us, and they're saying that he deserves disciplinary actions. Okay, we understand that. But why isn't she getting it? Because if we even took your route and we only went with what they told us, Malika, with the information that has been shared, we know that two consenting adults, it's not like you had the super big boss man who was bribing this woman, or or she was bribing him, or it was a situation where he was forcing her because of his power and his influence and his authority. That's not what happened. We're hearing that two consenting adults, and they're talking about why isn't her identity being shared? Why isn't, like, her identity isn't in jeopardy? Her job apparently is not even in jeopardy. Why? That's what I'm wanting to know. Why? Because let's say you don't fire this man. This is my next problem. You didn't even fire him. You suspended him for a year. Okay, and then you just publicly said, because you came out in the press conference and asked you, was anybody else involved in this situation going to be facing disciplinary actions other than the coach? And the president and the GM of the organization came out and gave us a big flat no. Okay, but you're going to publicly say that one of the people involved in the affair, which just happens to be the coach, which just happens to be the man, is going to be suspended for a year. He's not going to be fired now, but they're going to reconvene or reevaluate what their decision is going to be for him in the future after this 1-year suspension. But her identity is protected. She's not going to see disciplinary actions. Somebody make sense of this for me, please. There is very rarely you'll ever see me jump on YouTube and post 2 videos in one day, and especially this late, because it's late where I'm at. But this is crazy, man. Like, share, and subscribe, man. I'm out. Peace.
Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.